Federal government projects 82% of revenue for debt servicing. Nigerian Governors Forum warns against economic recession due to scarcity of new notes. More state joins federal government legal battle. And on business, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority and CBN plan database for crude oil distribution. And on the international scene, United Nations warns of aid failure for Syria as PEP tool hits 33,000. And in sport, Eagles geared by Logun Bulls ahead of Guinea-Bissau clash. Hello, welcome to Standard Voice Television News Channel. I'm Svtv. The International Monetary Fund said the federal government has projected to spend 82% of its revenue on interest payment in 2023. According to the IMF, external debt, including that of the private sector, will rise to $121.6 billion, with external reserves climbing to $37.5 billion. The fund disclosed this in a table of projection in its IMF Executive Board concludes 2023 article IV consultation with Nigerian summary. The projection showed an improvement in the share of the government revenue that was being used as interest payment, with interest payment falling from 96.3% in 2021 and 82% in 2023. It added that interest payment was 86.1% and 87.8% of the federal government revenue in 2020 and 2021 respectively. The Nigerian Governors Forum has warned that the continuous scarcity of 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes may lead to economic recession as well as severe food inflation. Our correspondent Rahama Ibrahim has more.
The forum, in a communique issued at the end of its meeting, lamented that though the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, the federal government would comply with the order of the Supreme Court of Nigeria nullifying the February 10th deadline for the validity of 3 old notes, Nigerians have not experienced any change so far. The communique, signed by the chairman of the forum and the governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, said the inability to use the new notes has had far-reaching economic effect, leading to the emergence of the naira black market, severe food inflation, variable commodities price based on the method of exchange, and long queues as well as crowds around automated teller machines, and banking halls across the country with individuals hoping to get a fraction of their money in new notes to meet their daily livelihoods. It said the Central Bank of Nigeria had extended the deadline for the swap of old 200 naira, 500 naira and 1,000 naira from January 31st to February 10th, but the Supreme Court held that the federal government, the CBN and the commercial banks must not continue with the deadline pending the determination of a notice in respect of the issue on February 15th. Rahama Ibrahim, Standard Voice Television.
More states have joined the legal battle against the federal government over the currency redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Attorney General of Ekiti, Bayelsa, Sokoto and Rivers State said their state were set to join as co-plaintiffs in the suit filed by the government of Kaduna, Kogi and Zamfara states. Our correspondent Sumaya Ibrahim has more.
The states are opposing that the February 10 deadline for the currency swap policy on the grounds that it was inflicting sufferance on their citizens. Kano and Ondo State had earlier joined the 3 states which filed the suit number at the Supreme Court. This is as the Nigerian Governors Forum warned that the crisis occasioned by the CBN policy might cause another economic recession in the country. Following the application of the 3 northern states of Kaduna, Kogi and Zamfara, the Supreme Court last Wednesday issued an ex parte order restraining the federal government and CBN from enforcing the February 10 deadline for the swap of the old 1,000 naira, 500 naira and 200 naira notes. Sumaya Dosa reporting for Svtv News.
The Department of State Services has invited a spokesperson of the All Progressive Congress Presidential Campaign Council, Fani Kayode, over allegations of a coup plot ahead of the February election. Fani Kayode, a former minister under the Olusegun Obasanjo administration, confirmed the invitation in a statement. The spokesperson added that he would honor the invitation. Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari has directed all banks and the businesses community in the state to continue to accept the old notes of 200, 500 and 1,000 naira domination in all transactions. The governor, in a statement by the Commissioner for Information, Culture and Home Affairs, Yahya Sirika, explained that the directive is as a result of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, respecting the Supreme Court's judgment on the new naira notes to wait till February 15, 2023 to determine the continued or otherwise usage of the old currency. The governor also urged all and sundry to abide by the directives to ensure peace, harmony and tranquility in the state. Kano State Governor Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje has instructed the acting chairman of Kano State Consumer Protection Council, Dr. Bafa Babadang Agundi, to shut down WellCare supermarket, which sells and selling food products and drugs. Our correspondent, Jamila Ibrahim, has more.
The order of closure follows the refusal of WellCare supermarket to accept the old naira notes from customers against instruction by the state government to continue accepting the old notes. Chairman of the council disclosed that after shutting down the supermarket, legal action will also be taken against the supermarket. Dr. Baffa also warned other marketers in Kano to be aware that the state government has not banned the use of old naira notes as legal tender. Therefore, any shop caught not receiving the old notes will be dealt with decisively. Meanwhile, newsmen gathered that WellCare Alliance Limited has sent a plea and an apology letter to Governor Ganduje for an immediate intervention to reopen the supermarket. Jamila Ibrahim Dosara, reporter for Standard Voice Television.
A member of the National Peace Committee, Hidayat Hassan, has disclosed that there have been more than 134 attacks on the offices and personnel of the Independent National Electoral Commission across the country as of January 2023. Mrs. Hassan made this known on Channel's television special election program, The 2023 Verdict. She lamented increasing violence in the country ahead of the 2023 elections and wondered how the election will be able to hold if these attacks continue. Mrs. Hidayat said it is quite disturbing that the casualties were higher and the number of incidences are rising. She said so far there have been more than 134 attacks on INEC facilities and personnel. And on business, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Central Bank of Nigeria and other relevant agencies are to establish reliable data required for determining the appropriate methodology for the transportation of bulk storage for crude oil and natural gas in Nigeria. According to a statement signed by the agency in Abuja, the Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Farouk Ahmad, disclosed this at the 2023 Petroleum Liquid Inventory Reconciliation Exercise. The authority said the exercise includes the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Crude Oil and Gas Export Companies, CBN, and the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Mr. Ahmad, who was represented by the Executive Director, Distribution System, Storage, Retailing, Infrastructure, Ogbodogo Okoha, said the expanded data ecosystem would cover petroleum liquid volumes evacuated by trucking, barging, and pipelines. And on the international scene,
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
the UND announced Sunday a failure to get desperately needed aid to war-torn region of Syria, while warning that death toll of over 33,000 from an earthquake that also devastated Turkey will double. A UN convoy with supplies for northwest Syria arrived via Turkey, but the agency's relief chief, Martin Griffith, said much more was needed for millions whose homes were destroyed. Supplies have been slow to arrive in Syria, where years of conflict have ravaged the healthcare system, and part of the country remains under the control of rebels battling the government of President Bashar al-Assad, which is under Western sanctions. According to the state media, security concerns prompted the suspension of some rescue operations, and dozens of people have been arrested for looting or trying to defraud victims in the aftermath of the quake in Turkey. And on sports, Super Eagles coach Jose Peseiro has been handed a major boost after Queen Park's Rangers manager Neil Kucheli announced that defender Leon Balogun has resumed individual training and would join in team training next week ahead of the African Cup of Nations qualifier against Guinea-Bissau in March. The 34-year-old has been injured since November 8 in a championship game against Huddersfield and was a major doubt for the clash against the Jurastes in a double-header clash next month. The central defender had only just joined QPR as the free agent last summer and impressed earlier on with a goal against his former club, Wigan Athletic, in October in 11 games before the injury. That has been the news from Standard Voice Television. To end the news, here's a recap of the major headlines. Federal government projects 82% of revenue for debt servicing. Nigerian Governors Forum warns against economic recession due to scarcity of new needs. More state joins federal government legal battle. And on business, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority and CBN plan database for crude oil distribution. And on the international scene, United Nations warns of aid failure for Syria as tech tool hits 33,000. And in sports, Eagles geared Balogun boost ahead of Guinea-Bissau clash. That's the news. Thank you for joining us. I'm Fazia Ibrahim. Do have a nice day.